What's good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this one I'm going to break down what's going on with NIO stock and what you should be watching for going forward. I'm also going to briefly talk about Tesla spying the QQQ and what news just came out that helped NIO absolutely explode today as NIO is up over 11%. I'm also going to break down what's going on with tomorrow as we have Jerome Powell speaking again and why you should be very, very ready for more volatility in the markets because of it. Before we continue down with all this information, though, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire NIO community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. Deposit $100 and you're guaranteed 5 free stocks with a $100 cash reward. And finally, guys, don't forget this offer ends in 3 days. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. So NIO is up over 11% for the day. In my previous video, I predicted that NIO had this bullish divergence developing, but I didn't know how much NIO would run by. And I predicted NIO might make a move to about 8.8 or so, but I wasn't expecting it to be that massive because of the trend NIO was on. But despite that, NIO actually announced something very, very bullish, which I obviously couldn't see yesterday. Nobody could have predicted that. And after this very big announcement was just released, NIO absolutely exploded. So what was the announcement? Why is NIO up so big? NIO announces a deal with CNOOC. This is very, very big news for them. And it's going to be centering around charging and battery swapping infrastructure that's going to be built very, very soon. So this was posted on Twitter and also a press release. And the company announced today that its energy subsidiary has entered into a strategic partnership with the Chinese National Offshore Oil Company, or CNOOC. For investors who are not aware of this, this is the third largest oil company. Making this partnership is huge news for NIO moving forward. Once again, it's all built around charging and the infrastructure for the battery swapping. And both of them have been leading this signing ceremony for today. Both management teams were speaking about it, and they're very excited about this with very positive news. Now, as for NIO in particular, this is once again a big game changer for the company. You have to remember a couple of things that happened, okay? First off, we saw massive countries investing into NIO, almost $1 billion. Now we're starting to see more deals, and there's a lot of strong guidance for the next report that's coming out in the next couple of days, which could help NIO. NIO is going to be announcing their deliveries for the month of June, and the share price may explode because of it. Now, not guaranteeing it, but it is a possibility, and I'm going to break down more about that in just a few minutes. But you can see right here, accordingly, bringing on a massive company like CNOOC could accelerate NIO's rollout, giving the company a greater head start on its competition in China. China is the largest EV market in the world, and with the growing middle class, the EV generation is just continuing to boom over there, and it's just going to accelerate as time goes on. Revenue is continuing to grow for the company, and this infrastructure is going to help them big time. It's going to continue to help NIO grow, and it's going to make them more competitive with many other companies. This is once again very good for them. You can see right here, having a partner will allow NIO to put more capital to work in boosting production, leading to some more significant shareholder value. So that's once again some very, very awesome news. Investors are very excited about this. Looking at NIO, the price price ratio was dropping. NIO was underperforming temporarily, but after this, we should see a big bounce in as NIO is outperforming, and we got some very good volume too. NIO tends to be strong on Wednesdays 55% of the time, and it tends to do better during the fourth hour of the trading day. And finally, don't forget that the short interest started going up on NIO, shorts piled in, and now we may be seeing what appears to be a short squeeze as many shorts were quickly to start covering their positions, exiting them, closing them, because they knew about the partnership and things like that just afterwards. So that could play a role in why NIO was up over 11% in one day. There was also a lot of buying pressure as the volume was very strong, 72 million. Lots of investors started pouring their money in as they saw lots of good news like this. The short volume right over here started declining just a little bit, another decent sign. Now, despite all of this really good stuff that was coming in, I just want to remind you guys that the data that came out today for the economy was pretty interesting. We saw some strength from the home sector. The consumer confidence report was quite strong. And then despite that, Jerome Powell is going to be speaking tomorrow when the market opens at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. This is going to be big for NIO and cause a very interesting move. We may see the market slow down a little bit depending on what he says. I don't really know for sure. It just depends on what he says. But he has been more hawkish as of recently, so it may slow the market down a bit. But then when he's done talking, the market may start pumping again because the market is still looking quite strong. Now, there's all this talk about how Powell promised a housing market reset, and so far it has not happened. So we may see that discussed tomorrow. And finally, for tomorrow, for today, we have Jeffries reporting earnings. For tomorrow, we have like Micron and BlackBerry and just a few others. And then for Thursday, we have like Nike and etc. But not too much is going on the earnings side. Now let's talk about the markets. First, I'm going to talk about SPY, Tesla, and the QQQ just briefly. Then NIO comes after. Anyways, when it comes to SPY, this thing was up quite nicely on the 1 hour time frame, breaking out and breaking resistance at that 435 to go for the gap fill. Now there's another gap way up here around 439. Right, I can actually show you this on, or at least without the extended hours. This gap right over here is still unfilled around 439. SPY might go for the gap fill. Maybe it cools off first and gets a retest of the 50 EMA. That is possible. Maybe Powell cools this off a bit and then it just continues going and tries to fill this gap all the way up here. That's what I'm leaning towards. I think it's very likely that that's what's going to end up happening. But if anything, make sure you watch support around 435. We also have support at, let me just bring up these levels. Give me 1 second. Need to fix that. And now we're just going to bring these back. Watch support at 435 flat. If that breaks, watch 433.9 specifically, which is where our 50 EMA is on the 1 hour time frame. 433.5, 433, then 431. I think it may retrace to about 435 or so, maybe a little lower depending on what Powell says, then make its way right back up as time goes on. Tesla's looking quite nice. It actually broke and managed to test the 50 EMA. It may reject and cool off because of Powell. I just don't know what he's going to say, so be careful during the first hour to hour and a half. And then we might see the market continue going. If Tesla breaks this 250 resistance, which it has the potential to do so, it could continue pumping and make its way back to the mid 250s. I also think Tesla's going to pump very hard approaching Friday because it's going to be the last Friday before Tesla announces their deliveries. And that's going to be very huge for Q2, so please be ready for that. Last but not least, before I talk about NIO, the QQQ has resistance now at this 364 zone, 364.5 zone. If it breaks above that, watch 366. And if it breaks that, it could get closer to 368. If it breaks below the current support at 363, it could come all the way down to about 361.72. And then if that breaks, 360 could come. Now, with the triple Q, I think it may cool off a little bit in the morning because of Jerome Powell. I don't know what he's going to say, so just be careful. But then we could get a nice intraday bounce after Powell is out of the way, and the market may pump even more, and we could see the triple Q reach at least 366 or higher. It all depends on what Powell says. I don't really know what he's going to say. For NIO, it's looking very bullish and very strong. Could cool off a bit because of Powell and retest like 9.21, maybe even like 9, but I think that would be a little bit too low. It has a lot of momentum, lots of volume, so it's still looking strong. It may cool off a little bit because of Jerome Powell. He's going to be speaking in the morning. NIO could retest 9.21, maybe even $9, which is the next support below that. Then it could get a nice bounce and just continue to hold these levels. May even close very flat, maybe a little bit green tomorrow. It could continue pumping past 9.5 or even higher. If it breaks above 9.5, I'm going to see this thing get closer to about $10 after that because there's not much resistance after that. I think at 9.75 there's some, but $10 is going to be the next important zone. We could see NIO make its way up, still holding up nicely, still has a lot of potential. Now, let me also add that we had a bullish divergence that developed right here on NIO in the smaller time frames. And on top of that, there's a possible like accumulation that could be forming. Could NIO be forming like an inverse head and shoulders? Like, is it about to like pump more, just like 9.66 area, and then cool off a bit, and then start pumping? Because you could argue that we have like a left shoulder here, like a head, and maybe a right shoulder is forming. I don't really know for sure, but it's just one thought I had. But other than that, I think that NIO might, wherever we open it, whether it's up or down, it could be a little up. We may start cooling off because of Powell, though. That's my warning for you guys. We might see NIO just cool off a little bit. It doesn't have to be that significant. It could retest 9.2, maybe even $9 because of Jerome Powell speaking. Now, why am I saying that? I don't know what he's going to say. So I don't know for sure, but I think it's a little bit more likely because Powell was being very hawkish as of recent. So if he says hawkish things, it may slow down the markets. But then after Powell is done speaking, we might see NIO in the market bounce, and we might see NIO continue to pump and make its way close to 9.5 plus. After 9.5, we could see this thing approach the 9.75 to 9.8 area, $10, then eventually break above $10. It could also be forming an inverse head and shoulders to watch resistance around this like 9.75 zone all the way like around here. So watch that carefully. Maybe it comes up here, it cools off because of Powell, and then it just ends up pumping, like crazy. That's also a possibility. But just know Powell may cause a small drop before it continues pumping. And that's basically what I have for this video. So I just want to warn you guys about that. But other than that, NIO is still looking very strong. I don't think Powell's going to cause NIO to crash. I think it may just be a slight slowdown. But besides that, it's looking very good. And I'm very optimistic for what the future holds for this company. With that said, I think NIO has a lot of potential for the second half of this year. I'm very excited for what the future holds. Until I see you guys again tomorrow, NIO to the moon as the long term is very bright. And don't forget to watch all those different support zones just to be safe. Thank you. NIO to the moon as the long term is very bright. And peace out.